Welcome to H2K Infosys. H2K Infosys is a e-verify business based in Atlanta, Georgia, United States. We provide 100% job-oriented, instructor-led, face-to-face, true live online software training programs. It also includes access to cloud test lab with software tools. We provide live project for you to work on. We also provide assistance with mock interviews, resume preparation and review, and job placement assistance. H2K Infosys is trusted by so many students across the world. H2K Infosys provides world-class services in IT training with real-time project work for corporates and individuals, special IT training for MS students in the United States, software design, development, QA manual and automation, performance testing and maintenance, IT staff augmentation, job placement assistance, and tech support.
Someone tell me, what is a web service? Anyway, we have discussed about what a web service at hand of time. Could someone just tell me what a web service is for? Or we call something as middleware technology, right? We hear the word middleware technology, right? I mean, what is the role of middleware technology in an application perspective or in a web perspective? What is the middleware technology and what's the purpose of middleware technology, right? I mean, in real-time scenarios, we send information from one point to another, right? Even in wrong software systems, right? There is some necessity of the transformation of information, right? Between different software systems, right? Between different software systems, the information exchange should be done, right? So how that happens? That happens through middleware technology. It is a technology that we actually use to connect two different software applications or two different computer systems together. That's what we call it as a middleware technology. And they basically connect the output of the source system to the input of the destination system. Of course, when you have some, the data transition, there should be some source system and there should be some destination system, right? The source system output should be connected to destination system input. That is done through middleware technology. Who exactly does it is the middleware technology. And the kind of connection could be synchronous or asynchronous. So, what is the difference? I mean, it depends on how you want it to be synchronous or asynchronous. It depends on the software requirement, how exactly we want to have it. So, what is the difference between a synchronous communication and asynchronous communication? Right? So, let's say we have a web service, we want to convert this application into a web app. We publish some function, right, or some kind of a message to the entire web or to the rest of the world, right? Let's say we publish a web service, right? When we publish a web service, what do you think the publishing of a web service? I create a web service, I deploy it, and we publish it so that it will be visible for everyone, right? So when we publish the web services, they could be found and they could be used through the web. This is there is a web service that Google is providing or Amazon is providing, right? We could access it from different systems, right? That's about. So let's see what is the difference between synchronous and asynchronous, right? Let's say you are checking the price of a specific item through different channels, right? So if you check a specific item price on Amazon.com through a laptop or through an iPhone or an Android, does we get the same data or does we get the different data? Irrespective of, whatever we are using to access Amazon, we get the same data or do we get different data? We get the same data, right? Say from laptop you're calling the get price, and from the iPhone you're calling the get price, right? Because they are all calling the same web service. No matter what and where you're calling, if you're calling the same web service, we will be getting the same data or same kind of output, right? In synchronous implementation of a web service, right, whenever the client sends a request, right, the connection remains open from the time the request is submitted to the server. The client waits until the server responds back, until the server sends a response back to the client, right? That is synchronous. Whenever the client sends a request, the connection is still present until the server responds back with a response message. So it says, just get me the deals on all the laptops, right? Even if it is taking time, the client waits in a synchronous communication. The client actually waits. It will be on hold till the server responds back. That is synchronous communication. The advantage of using a synchronous web service is that the calling application or the client knows the status of the web service operation in a very short time. In asynchronous web service, or in general any asynchronous communication, right, the client or the calling application does not wait for the web service response. It forwards the request and it does not wait for the response. After sending a request, it just says, you can send me data when you are ready. The advantage of using asynchronous is that the calling application has the ability to do another task rather than waiting for the response. So this code, we cannot say, this particular implementation is useful in all the scenarios. There is some scenarios wherein the client wants, to get the exact status of the operation. Wherein some scenarios wherein the client is not bothered about it right away, and it could do its task meanwhile the server or the web service responds, right? These are two ways of implementation: the synchronous and asynchronous. So, any doubts on the synchronous and asynchronous implementation? What is synchronous and what is asynchronous? If a general level web service is saying synchronous communication or asynchronous communication, it's the same. So, folks, any doubts on this?
Examples of that?
Sorry?
What are the examples of synchronous and what are the examples?
Yes. Synchronous is basically when you are browsing something, the same as right? When you are trying to look up the type of a specific item, right? Or when you search, you just want to respond. When you're searching for something, you don't want to do something else behind the scenes, right? But let's say that you are using some stock responders, right? You want to see the price, and meanwhile you want to check, how the stock is performing in the past 1 month, or how the stock is performing in 1 week, right? You just trigger it, but you just don't want to wait for it. You just want to check the current price of the stock right now, right? Let's say I'm going to buy Apple stock, right? I'm looking for an analysis of how the stock graph is, the analysis for the past week or for the past month, right? That is made as an asynchronous request because we don't want to wait for it. Meanwhile, the application has to be able enough to get me the current stock price, let's say, of the stock which I'm trying to buy. I want to know the current Apple stock price as the graph or itself or the data that it gets back to me. You understand it, Manoj?
Oh, yeah.
So in that scenario, like that specific thing, we want to make it as asynchronous so that it doesn't wait, it just pops up as soon as the analysis is ready or the graph is ready for you. But meanwhile, you could check the price of Apple or any other stock. So there we do with the asynchronous communication. Especially financial and capital markets, it's like there are so many things that happen behind the scenes, or that make to happen in the background rather than waiting for the response. So, and finally, we are into WSDL. So, what is WSDL? Any idea on what is WSDL? WSDL is Web Service Description Language. Right? So, whenever, right, we are trying to get some data. Let's say, as we discussed, I'm writing a web service and someone else is consuming it, right? So, I should tell them what kind of an input that I expect, right? Let's say I'm writing a web service and Manoj is consuming my web service, right? The web service, when I'm providing a service, an operation, right, that takes some inputs, right, that gives back some outputs, isn't it? See, when we're performing any service in general, the service has some inputs and it gives back some outputs, right, folks? Not only web service, in general, right? So, there should be some contract for it. I tell most, these are the inputs that you have to provide me. And this is the information that I'll be providing as the output, right? So what do we usually call it as? In normal terms, we call it as a contract, right? This is what I provide as the input, and this is what you have to give me as back as a response. Or a web service tells, I expect this input, and I give back this output, right? It's nothing but a contract, right? Where this information is present about the web service it is present in a WSDL file. Before we go ahead and see what are the elements inside the WSDL, first we have to understand the purpose or what a WSDL is for. So how can we relate a WSDL file to any Java entity? Any one of you? What could I compare a WSDL with in Java? When I have a WSDL file, I'm saying it has a contract on what input it takes or what output it gives back, right? You have the contract. Sorry?
It's like an interface.
Perfect. Yes. A WSDL is a kind of an interface. When we were discussing about the interfaces, we were discussing an interface is a contract, right? Like it specifies what it does, like like what it takes and what it returns, right? But we don't have any clue on how it does. Same with a WSDL. A WSDL file or in a WSDL, it's an XML-based language. It's used for describing the web services, how to access them, what do they accept as the input, what do they provide as the output. So when we are like trying to map it to the Java, a WSDL is nothing but an interface. When you do it in the business integration perspective, a WSDL is nothing but it's an interface. Right? So whenever someone is creating a web service, what do they say? Whenever I'm creating a web service, when someone asks me, how do I consume your web service or access your web service, right? What do I give them? I gave them the WSDL file, the link to the WSDL file, the WSDL file, and they are good enough to consume it. So folks, it's very important when we work as whereas for the interviews also, when we want to consume a WSDL-based web service, all we need is a WSDL file. We don't need anything else to consume it. A WSDL file is good enough. A WSDL file is an XML-based language for describing the web service, and it has the information on how to access them, what to access. A WSDL stands for Web Service Description Language, and a WSDL is written in XML.
Neha, that means a web service which is deployed on say the logic and the service is deployed on form and so the WSDL file will be seen from both.
Could you please be a little bit loud? What I understand is you have some web service that is hosted on a web sphere and you want to consume it from a Tomcat. Is it?
No. My question is the WSDL file will be same if same web service is deployed on two different web servers.
Yes, the structure and how it looks like a WSDL file looks the same. Irrespective of you deploy it in a web sphere or WebLogic, the WSDL file is going to be same. It doesn't get changed with different servers. That's what your question is, Rajesh?
Yes.
It's an XML format. It doesn't get changed depending upon the server we are deploying on. The contract that we're specifying on how an XML should look like, right? The code that wherever we are accessing could be, the specific URL that we specify. But a WSDL file doesn't change depending on the underlying or the deploying server. Someone else was asking something?
So if we are creating a service, do we need to create a WSDL file by our own?
Actually, there are different approaches on creating a web service. Okay? So, there are two different approaches. First, we write a WSDL file and then generate the Java classes. That is one approach. We write the WSDL file first and then generate the Java classes. Or, just like a service class, we write a service class having different methods. Those methods are nothing but the operations. From that service classes or interfaces, we generate the WSDL file. Those are two different approaches, Manoj. In the creation of a web services, there are two different approaches. Contract first or contract last. Contract first is, when we say contract, it's a WSDL file. Contract first is WSDL file first. We create the WSDL file first and then generate the classes and interfaces from the WSDL file. Contract last or bottom-up approach. Contract first or top-down approach. In the contract last approach, we have a Java class and we have some methods, inputs and outputs. From them, we generate the WSDL file. Those are two different approaches. But whatever, you finally need a WSDL file when you're writing a SoapUI-based web service. Whether you write it or you generate it from the Java class, we need a WSDL file. Does it answer your question? Manoj, are you clear?
Yeah. What I was asking is, which one is the easy approach? Creating a WSDL first or
actually, we are more experienced in writing Java classes, right? When we have a Java class, it's the methods and inputs and outputs objects, right? The method takes an input, the method takes that some out, right? So many people feel more comfortable in writing a Java class and generating the WSDL file.
Okay.
But few people argue that when you try to generate the WSDL file, then there are like multiple developers working on it, right? So they generate and they mess up the WSDL file when you have do Java to WSDL is what few people ask you. If you have the contract first approach, it's just adding the contract. I mean, the WSDL is not getting generated, so the contract doesn't mess up. That's what few people say. But as many people are we are as Java developers, we feel more convenient to write a Java class and write some methods on it rather than writing an XML file, which is a WSDL, right? Because and even though it's new, as we go ahead and start writing WSDL files, it doesn't seem to be difficult. But writing a Java code is what that we had been doing from day one, right? So initially we feel it more convenient to write a Java code and then generate system, but the other way is, with usage, it's not that complex to do the other way also. So Visual describes the web services. It's used to locate the web services also. So where the web service is present, where the port, this is the URL, like HTTP, localhost, port, this is where I locate the support. The Visual file has the information which describes the web services, and it has the information to locate the web services also. So before we go ahead with the Visual document structure, any doubts in this?
So will the Visual for like Java, I'm developing a service in Java and I'm developing a service in .NET, will be the Visual will be the same?
Yes. You can have a the Visual structure is the same. Visual file, right? Are we using any Java components in a Visual file? Are we specifying any Java related stuff in a Visual file? We don't do that. Manoj, do you get that point?
Yeah. Because I think Visual is the kind of XML and work for all.
Yes. So, any other doubts?
The WSDL is also used to locate the web services. Like, the consumer will have their own set of WSDL.
Sorry?
Different.
No, Visual is used to locate the web service, means at which port we have deployed the web service. Where could we access the web service, right? That's what is like locating the Visual.
So Neha, where the Visual file will reside, like it's on the server side, on the client side, or where?
Web service is completely a server side. You don't have any client side information when you're doing the web service. You consume the web service information, but it is not hosted on the client. It is hosted on the server.
Okay.
So the structure of a Visual file, right, having the types and all those things is a kind of same, but how we, represent like the code types or the headers could be like, little different across different programming languages. But the XML specification defining the types, the definitions, and everything is similar irrespective of it's a Java or a .NET. So let's say, I write my web service in Java. I share the same Visual file for someone to consume it on .NET. I mean, they could consume from the same Visual. But let's say we want to represent the same web service we're developing in a I want to do a web service. Same thing I'm trying to create in Java, and I'm creating it in .NET, right? I'm just taking for an example. There could be, some differences about, like, if you're using SoapUI, right? There could be some difference in handling the header or port type, but the content of the structure, everything is same. So what are the different major elements, like, the Visual has, right? So when we are sending some information and getting back some information, there is a data type, right, that we will be using, right? It need not be a single data, right? It could be an object, right? So we specify that as type. We specify that as type, and like we create XSC. And XSC is basically which tells us how an XML should look like, the XML schema definition. So these types will be usually kind of XSC. Type basically specify the container for data type definition. So in type, we basically specify different data type definitions that are used by the web service. And then we have a message, a type definition, like, we say it's a message. So it's a type definition for the data that's used to communicate. Let's say in a message, you can have multiple types that you could specify, right? So a message is basically a type definition of data that is used for communication. And then we have a port type. So a port type is a set of operations that could be supported by more than one endpoint. We can have, in a visual file, we can have two different endpoints, like two different URLs basically. But ideally, we have one endpoint or, per visual, and we can have many operations inside it. Or we can group operations, but it is not much recommended if we have like different logical set of operations. It makes more sense to maintain granularity to have it in a different visual file. And then we specify the binding. What is a binding? I mean, we usually talk about like, the binding that we are doing. What a binding specifies? The binding specifies the protocol and the data formatting, the data format specification for a specific port type, for a particular port type, Let's say port type hosts some set of operations that, by an endpoint, right? What the binding specifies, the protocol and the data format specification is what is specified by the binding. So this will contain some imports, extension elements, service elements. So that to group several web services in a single visual document also. But ideally, we have a visual file that's defined, as I mentioned, for a specific web service. Although we could have two different, specific different endpoints in a specific visual document, it's not encouraged. So, this is like a high-level structure. If you see, the root is the definition, and then this visual is, of course, an XML format. We have the definitions, like, what are the main structural elements of the visual document. We have the definitions, the time, the status, the port type, which is the set of operations. Each operation corresponds, from a Java perspective, each operation is nothing but a method. We have the port type. We have the binding, which specifies the protocol. Let's say we're using, SOAP protocol. We specify the SOAP binding, and we say the data format, and we specify the port type and all these things, binding. We have the root type and the definition. We have the type, the page, port type, and the binding as the main structure of a visual document. Suppose any doubts in that? Before we move. Any doubt?
Neha?
Yes.
The endpoints here mean the receiver and the sender? In the port type definition, we have seen the word endpoint. The endpoint, the sort of operation.
Yeah, the specific phase from where a group of operations, the logically grouped operation could be accessed, is termed as an endpoint.
Can you Come again, Neha. I didn't hear the first part. The voice is breaking. That's right.
Okay. See, let's say
Hello?
in a specific, let's say localhost 8080, web service 1 have, let's say, some set of operations, right? So that specific URL wherein I have hosted specific operations, it is called as an endpoint.
Okay. Then, okay. Yeah, got it.
So, legally, it's allowed to have specific different endpoints in a single visual file, but it's not encouraged.
So we can have multiple port types that
one port type we could specify it, but it is not encouraged actually. See, the endpoint is specifically, the URI on how you access it, where you could access it.
So many of our students have given testimonials on how our training programs are. You will find them on kudzu.com and on our website H2KInfosys.com. On our website H2KInfosys.com, you will also find more detailed information on who we are, the courses that we offer, what each course covers. Also, if you're interested in a demo program, please register on our homepage on the left-hand side. Just give us more information about yourself and we will send you a link for a demo class. The demo class is absolutely free. Experience our commitment by just attending an orientation workshop at no cost. Our team of faculty and advisors are here to guide you with the right information. If you still have more questions, please feel free to call us. Call us at 770-777-1269. This is a United States number. If you're calling from the UK, call us at 020-337-17615. You can also email us at training@h2kinfosys.com or h2kinfosys@gmail.com. Thank you for watching our videos. We wish you a great career in information technology.